Hi there, thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Cece. We have reached the end of the year and there are some songs and some albums that I really enjoyed this year that I am going to be talking about. I have a top 10 list of albums that I will be discussing and the songs that are within that album that I really like, as well as some songs that came out this year that were not a part of any albums that I also want to talk about in this video. There were definitely some things that I discovered this year too, and I am ready to talk about all of that in this video. So if you are new here, welcome. Feel free to subscribe. If you are returning, welcome back, and let's get into this video. I didn't say whether I was going to go like backwards or forwards. I guess I don't really have an order. I don't really have a specific order in my top 10. I just have the list in front of me. I don't know if I structured it any more specific last year, but this year it's not going to be specific. Just to clarify, whatever way I list these, there's no order of worst to best. I just enjoyed these 10 albums, okay? Okay, cool. But the first one that I want to talk about is literally one of the best albums that I've ever listened to. It's If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power by Halsey. Whew, this was a project. I feel like this was an amazing follow-up to the last album. Chef's Kiss 100% is the best thing ever. I listen to it all the time. It got me through my first semester at university also, so I have to thank this album for that. And the sounds in it are so nice. I feel like she chose great people to work with for the sound of this album. I forgot what their names were, but I know who they are, and I want more sounds like this. I was waiting for her to go back to this sound because I really enjoyed Nightmare when it first came out. I still love Nightmare. It's still one of my favorite Halsey songs, and I wanted a sound like that for Manic, but we didn't really quite get that. In fact, Nightmare wasn't even on that album. This new album really has much more of that like angry, like rock sound, and also Nightmare was on the deluxe edition. I don't even remember if I listened to the reprise of Nightmare. Someone told me there was a reprise of it, and I think I tried to look for it and I just could not find it. So if you know where it is, let me know because I still want to listen to it. My favorite songs on this album, Easier Than Lying is so good. I did a cover on this song too, so Girl Is a Gun, which actually made it as my top listened to song on Spotify, so Halsey was also my #1 artist on Spotify. And I'm Not a Woman, I'm a God was, I was excited for that one since the trailer, and it did not disappoint. I also really like You Asked For This and Whispers, but like, there's so many good songs on this album. This album is beautiful. I love it, and I wish it was nominated for Album of the Year for the Grammys, but you know, it was nominated for something in the Grammys, like the alternative top album, which I hope it wins. But speaking of Album of the Year, an album that was nominated for Album of the Year, and the one that I want to win Album of the Year, the one that I'm rooting for, is Planet Her by Doja Cat. I didn't do a reaction to this on my channel, I listened to it on my own, but oh my gosh, this album is so versatile. There's so much going on in this album. I love it. Doja has talent. You can't deny that. You really can't deny that. She has a lot of potential for the future, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. But she deserves Album of the Year. Let me tell you, she has some great music. As for my favorite songs on this album, I would have to say Woman, which was the first song that I listened to before I checked out this album. I didn't listen to it like right when it came out, I have to admit that. I listened to Woman first, and that drove me into the rest of the album, and Woman is still my favorite song from this album. I also really like Options and Been Like This. I feel like, I don't know if those two are underrated, but I feel like they're underrated songs. They are so good. I feel like especially Been Like This really shows how versatile Doja Cat can be. She does a lot of different things in that song, and Options is so catchy. It stays in my head. It's in my head like all the time. I'm excited to listen to future stuff that Doja puts out if she wants to. I know there was something going on where she was feeling overwhelmed about everything, so whatever she decides, cool. But if she does put out new stuff, I'm looking forward to it. And also, she better win Album of the Year. I'm rooting for her. Next on the list is probably one of my favorite videos that I have posted this year, and that is the Flux reaction. Let me tell you, Poppy fans are so nice. Because I just got into Poppy's music this year, and the fans that have commented on my videos and stuff, like, y'all have been nice and welcoming me into this fandom. But also the album itself, I love the sound of this and her voice. Like, you wouldn't expect such a soft voice to go with such a hard sound, and they go so well together. Like, I want to know how she makes it work, because I have a soft singing voice myself, and I love that kind of sound and would love to be in that kind of sound for music. So I want her to tell me how that works, because that's literally like her voice with that sound is basically my inspiration, I guess. But the first song, well, okay, technically the first song of Poppy's that I listened to was All the Things She Said, which is also a song that I really liked, but I think that came out last year, so I technically can't count this as a song in this video, but I only discovered it this year. The first song in this album that I listened to was Flux, and that was such a journey first listening to it. The intro is so nice and it takes you into the song, and just I think it's one of my favorite songs that came out this year. You know what, I just realized, I remember when I first reacted to Flux, I said, you know, when I make my end of the year video, Flux better be in there. And I remembered to put the song Flux in here. And I think it's still just as good as when I first heard it. Other songs from the album Flux that I really liked were Her, which is also one of the first ones I listened to, and Hysteria. I love Hysteria. The next album that I want to talk about is Life Support by Madison Beer. I had to put this in here. I actually did an initial reaction for it, but don't look for it because it's not on my channel. But like, I recorded it and I started editing it. But something I noticed as I was recording this album was that I was just not there. I recorded this album at a very interesting time. There was something crazy going on in my life, and it kind of tampered with my first reaction to this album. But then I reacted to it more, I listened to it more on my own, and it has become one of my favorite albums that came out this year. So that's why I never put that video out onto my channel. I would have to say that my favorite songs on this one are Baby. I have to admit it, Baby is a good song. Boy Shit is also really good. That's the song that really brought me into the album in the first place. And then Effortlessly made me cry the first time I listened to it on my own. Another album I want to mention is Happier Than Ever by Billie Eilish. I did not listen to this album when it first came out. I have some great memories with that first album, but the second album, I think sonically is a much good improvement, and her voice too, her vocals in this one, such an improvement, and I love it. I think Billie is evolving a lot as an artist too, and so I'm looking forward to her stuff in the future as well. I just realized the reference I made, Future, which is also one of my favorite songs on this album. Other songs that I like on this album are I Didn't Change My Number, but I also want to talk about a couple of other things. The Not My Responsibility song, and then how it transitions over to Overheated. I think that's my favorite part of this album. I think I Didn't Change My Number is my favorite song on this album, but I feel like Not My Responsibility, listening to that's such a masterpiece, but it transitioning over to Overheated, that's like my favorite part of the album, you know? You get me? Another album that I listened to on my own when I was on a long trip is Evil Angel by Zolita. I love the concept of this album. She was actually someone that I discovered pretty recently too. Not really this year, but more last year I discovered her. And then it's kind of continued over to this year, and this album came out and I listened to it, and it's one of the best things ever. My favorite song off this album, no doubt, is Gone Girl. There's something about the sound and just how it moves, its rhythm, just everything about it is the best thing ever. I love that song. I actually did a cover for that song too. And I know I'm like saying like, you know, I did a cover for this song and a song, but like, you know what? I'm gonna put my covers out there. After that, we got Evil Twin by Isaac Dunbar. This is such a comforting album to listen to. This is one that I like to listen to when I'm alone. I can just put my headphones on. That's how I feel about Isaac Dunbar's music, just period, any of his music. But this album that just came out this year, I feel that way about also. My favorite song on this album is Intimate Moments. I'm just gonna say it. I think I mentioned that when I did an Isaac Dunbar reaction before, but this song, nothing tops it. It is so good. But I also like The World and All Her Pearls. I like that one too. Next up, I want to mention Paranoia by Maggie Lindman. I feel like this year was really a year where I just got more into more like pop rock music, and this is an example. I mean, I was really into that sound already, But I feel like this year just kind of intensified that. I think it's a newer sound for her, and I think it fits her really well. I think she should keep on working with that, and I know she did. She put out another song this year that wasn't on that album called She Knows It. I can mention that one because that came out this year. I love that song. It's so good, and the music video that's with it. And also, my favorite song off of the Paranoia album that she came out with is Scissorhands. Another album I want to mention that I feel like is definitely underappreciated is Willow's album that she put out this year called Lately I Feel Everything. I feel like this shows Willow's capabilities, and I love how I'm talking like I know her stuff when this is probably the only, like, those are the only songs I've listened to of hers, but I feel like they are so good. I think that album definitely needs more recognition. Transparent Soul is one of my favorites, even though it came out before the album, and I mean, it's part of the album, so I can count it, but it's still one of my favorites off of the album. And then I also want to mention Naive. When I first listened to that one, I immediately fell in love with it. I still like it. The 10th album that I want to talk about is Red, Taylor's version. Technically, this is an album that came out in 2012, but this is Taylor's version that came out this year. As soon as it came out, I listened to it, specifically the All Too Well 10-minute version, which when I was younger, I wanted so badly, and now we have it. I'm not disappointed in it. I'm not disappointed in this album. I feel like Taylor made Red better. I'm gonna say it. Especially with Girl at Home. What an improvement of a song. So songs that came out this year that were not a part of album. Okay, there's a song I want to talk about that was a part of an album that came out this year. Helen of Troy by Lorde. Lorde came out with an album called Solar Power. I didn't include it in my top 10 because it wasn't in my top 10. But Helen of Troy, it wasn't even on the standard album. It was like a deluxe album that came out later. And so I listened to it on my own. And why was this not a part of the main album? Lorde, answer. Why was this not a part of the main album? This is such an amazing song. This is my favorite song off the album. I listen to this song all the time. I really like Mood Ring too, but Helen of Troy, this should have been on the main album. Good Ones by Charlie XCX. She has an album coming out next year with that song in it, but I really like Good Ones. It's probably one of the ones that I listen to the most. I listen to the song like every day, so I had to include it. Next, Haley Kiyoko, who did not come out with an album this year, but I think might come out with an album next year. Possibly. But Haley Kiyoko came out with Chance and Found My Friends, and also a collaboration with Fletcher called Cherry. I like all of those songs. I wanted to include all of those in this video because, well, I enjoyed them. But also by Fletcher, she did a song this year called Girls, Girls, Girls. Love that. I love the sample that she used for there. It's very fitting. I like how she used the sample. And speaking of gay anthems, I also want to include She's My Religion. That is probably also one of the songs I've listened to the most this year. I think it was in my top Spotify songs, but it's a masterpiece. So I think I covered all of the albums and songs this year that I really appreciated. What were your favorite songs and albums that came out this year? Let me know all of that down below. What are you the most excited for next year? Who are you excited for putting stuff out next year? Just let me know about everything down in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe for more. I have done plenty of music reactions as well as some covers, film reactions. We'll see what I put on my screen. And I hope to see you next year in the next video. Bye!